A big question through the last couple of days, through this week, is what is happening with El Nino, because there has been a lot of talk about a super El Nino, and actually this week it has been declared an El Nino year by both the Japanese Met Service and also in America by NOAA. Now, interestingly, the Bureau of Meteorology in Australia, they haven't declared it yet. And that's not to say one is necessarily right and the other's wrong or whatnot. It's that they're using slightly different yardsticks, definitions, in order to come up with their El Nino. But first, let's look at what El Nino is. And it's a warming of the sea surface temperatures in the Central Eastern Tropical Pacific. So what I have here is a map or diagram going through the last few decades, and it's this area. This is Niño 3.4, and it's looking at the temperatures fluctuations. And the sea surface temperatures, they do fluctuate in this area. We go through around a 2 to 7 year cycle, flipping between La Nina to El Nino, and you can see that here with these temperatures going up and down, and it's worth bearing in mind it's in this area. Now, this is the area that both NOAA in America and also BOM in Australia look at when considering the sea surface temperature anomaly and whether or not it is El Nino. But actually, the Japanese service, they look at a slightly different area. They look at Niño 3, and so that's why you get slightly differences between, or these slight differences between who's saying it is El Nino and who's saying it isn't yet. Now, looking at that El Nino 3.4, and the definition from NOAA is that we have to have an anomaly greater than 0.5 over several months. And the BOM definition is actually 0.8. Now, we have got above that threshold of 0.8. I think it's around 0.81 now. But we haven't had it for long enough yet that the Bureau of Meteorology have declared it an El Nino event just yet. But all signs point to that anomaly rising through the next few months. And by the end of the summer, by the end of the Northern Hemisphere summer, it's likely to be greater than 2 Celsius. And there has been lots of talk about it being a very strong, a Godzilla El Nino, because most of the models are in agreement that it is going to be a very significant event indeed. Some models, several in fact, suggesting that it could be one of the strongest on record, if not the strongest, likely to be perhaps the strongest this century at least. And what does El Nino mean for us? Well, it does lots of different things. I mean, you may be wondering why something going on with the sea surface temperatures so far away would actually impact us. And it's because everything is interlinked, and what's happening with the temperature of the ocean will influence the atmosphere. And when we get an El Nino event, we see certain things happening. So the trade winds ease, the rainfall gets pushed further eastwards across the Pacific, and they're the type of things that we need to be aware of. So for the UK, the impact, I'll come on to that in a second, but in some parts of the world, the impact can be significantly greater. We can see a reduction in rainfall in places such as Australia, Southeast Asia, and several other places, and then that can increase the risk of drought and wildfires and cause other problems. Across parts of other areas, we can see a greater amount of rainfall. Eastern Africa, for example, there can be huge fluctuations in their rainfall in an El Nino year. And globally, we see a rise in our temperatures. So we have a warming climate anyway, but an El Nino year can boost those temperatures even higher. For the UK, and I'll just get this picture up as representative, but for the UK, well, the impacts from an El Nino, they're greater later in the year. Autumn, early winter, we see more likely to see a south-shifted jet, in which case we're more likely to see things a bit wetter, but also milder. Towards the end of the winter, we could see things a bit drier, but also colder. In terms of how it influences our summer, well, not a huge amount really. But that takes me on to what is going to happen through the next few days, through the week, because there are signs that we could see another heat wave by the end of next week and into the weekend. So here I have the jet stream, but a few fronts, and we've already highlighted that we are going to, if I get rid of the jet stream, let's put rain on instead. We are going to see our weather quietening down through this weekend. There's high pressure towards the south of us, and if I run this through, then it is actually going to build across us. And so whilst towards the north of the UK through the weekend, it's going to stay quite blustery. You can see the tighter packed isobars, and we have some showery rain. That will continue overnight and into Saturday. But further south, we have high pressure and a lot of fine weather to come. Then by Sunday, most of the showers in the north will have eased away and the high pressure more across us, so a largely fine picture. At this point, I want to bring on our 850 temperature to show what the warmth is doing, and we have this warmer air to the south of us at the moment. That's going to come in from the southwest, and so particularly across southern southwestern parts of the UK, we're going to get that warmer air coming in, so temperatures rising, mid-20s, that kind of thing through the weekend here. But towards the northeast, we're clinging on to those fresher conditions, so temperatures not rising here as much. Now the fine weather looks like it will largely continue into Monday before we have more changeable weather, so unsettled weather coming in from the west, and that's going to arrive and push its way through. Let's just rattle that through, and that's going to then make its way across the country by the middle of the week. So definitely looks like it's going to be more unsettled, more changeable by the time that we get to the middle of the week. So a few quieter days, Saturday for southern areas, Sunday and Monday quite widely, and then things turning wetter. But it's turning wetter, but also a bit milder. There is this warmer air still coming towards the south. And if I show you our chart, which I have here, once it loads, now this is our multi-model probabilistic meridional trend. So this is telling us whether or not we're going to be having our winds coming in from the north or from the south. And the red's indicating that through next week, generally the winds are going to be coming in from the south. And with hot air to the south of us, that goes in line with the idea that we're going to see temperatures rising. So even though things are going to be quite unsettled through the middle of next week with rains and blustery winds, that kind of thing, we should also see our temperatures rising as well. How high are those temperatures going to rise? Well, let's have a look. Let's start ahead towards the end of the week. Let's go for Friday, 3 o'clock. And, oh, I don't like this member. Let's put member 0 from ECMWF. And you can see by the end of the week, this is hinting that we could get temperatures, particularly across central eastern parts, of around 27, 28 Celsius. So we could be looking at them getting to that heat wave threshold. Now, we wouldn't be looking at it actually being a heat wave by this point, because maybe Thursday might be the first hot day in parts of the east-southeast, before then temperatures continue to rise through the weekend. So this could be around when we could see temperatures starting to get above that heat wave threshold. But worth bearing in mind, that's just one possible member. You can see member 1 is markedly fresher, member 2 is a little bit warmer, but like member 5, let's actually find one that's a little bit cooler. There we go, member 6. Nowhere near as hot as some of the members have. But there looks to be fairly good agreement amongst our models that we are going to see our temperatures rising. If I just try and get a plume up for London, if it decides to load, if it doesn't, I do have a backup, so that's fine. Let's not worry. Oh, that's because I need to press the temperature button. Here we go. And you can see we have this warming trend. So even though we have this unsettled spell during the middle of the week, we are set to see our temperatures rising, particularly across eastern parts of England. If we look further north, you can see there is a rise in our temperatures, but it's not as marked. And so several things to break down with the potential for some hot weather towards the end of next week and for the following weekend. It looks like at the moment it may just be largely confined to central eastern parts of England, at least to begin with. That's where it could be hot. Elsewhere, temperatures not that much more above average in comparison anyway to parts of the southeast. And one big difference between this setup and what we had during those very hot days in May is during May we had this heat dome effect with high pressure and temperatures rising day on day. We had subsidence and there was just a lot of hot air around. This is a different setup. As I already mentioned, we have quite a changeable, unsettled run-up to this period. And so that's why there's uncertainty about those temperatures. We're not especially confident with exactly how hot it's going to get at the moment. But watch this space, because it does look like temperatures are going to rise through the week, and a heat wave by the end of the weekend into the weekend isn't out of the question, particularly across parts of the east of England.